It makes our show sound more impressive that we were able to secure someone of your caliber.
I had a hard time with my students, say, no, it's just John. Don't call me Dr. Iddleson. I only use that when I'm being paged in an airport.
And you do it purposely, so you can say, yes, that's me. I am the doctor that you're looking for.
Now my secret's out. It's good to have you back around.
It's nice. It's nice to have you here, John. Very nice. We got to hang out in Melbourne, in Australia a couple of years ago, which was very cool. This is what happens with the office hours global community. I was just hearing, Courtney, you were hanging out with a couple people last night from office hours.
Yes, we had the joy of Aaron Huslage, and Vienna Tran was here from your neck of the woods. And so
cool.
we met up at the one and only Tesla Diner, and I think they were driving it. I don't know, Aaron was rented a Tesla, so maybe he was putting it on the one of 89 superchargers. Unfortunately,
Wow.
it's right near me. It's I could walk there if I wanted to, but yeah,
does
it
your
was
power
really bad food.
Does your do your lights dim when all 89 charges are being used?
Well, not only that, there's two giant LED screens that are like 1.9 millimeter pitch that are in the parking lot. So they were playing Close Encounters of the Third Kind on both of those screens last night.
That's cool.
And the neighbors, get a free movie every night. But, they probably repeat the same ones over and over again because they can't afford to pay the licensing fees, probably.
Right.
They survived
over in Texas.
They're riding from there to Las Vegas. They're in Las Vegas.
They're in Vegas now. Yeah.
They were in after hours, letting us watch them drive the Tesla.
They were they went to Big Bear last night after they left us about 8:30 at night from the Tesla Diner. They drove to Big Bear, so that was quite a drive. And then on to Vegas. And then
Wow.
they're headed for the Grand Canyon. I hope they have their lights on when they come upon it.
Quite the
That Tesla
journey.
if they have it in full self-driving, it may not see the hole in the ground, maybe.
Over in Texas, we have Peter Sargent. Hello, Peter.
Good evening, gentlemen. Word is I'm in Dallas today in a hotel room, which is why I have a very different background than before.
Dude.
And a highly over-engineered webcam. I'm using a Pixis 6K as my webcam right now. It is 74 degrees Fahrenheit, 23 degrees Celsius at 8 o'clock in the evening.
Excellent. Thank you for the report on location. And to complete the panel, our fearless leader, Guy Cochran.
Checking in from Seattle, but I don't have a Pixis for a webcam.
No.
And to complete the weather report, it actually is pretty nice out there today. This is out the back door. Looking at it, it's sunny and warm. It's one of those 65 days that we get that are sunny in Seattle because 300 days of gray sky or rain.
And not
nice today.
Did the cows come home? I didn't see any of them in the pasture there.
They're out there somewhere. I'll have to pan right. I can't see this small little window, but I'll pan here in a second.
All right. So I was thinking about, I was catching up, I sort of caught some of the Sunday show, which is in the middle of the night. And I heard, Guy, you talk about what I thought you said was NDIHX. And what you actually said was the MDHX, which hasn't been updated in some time. And so what is that? There was a firmware upgrade, is there?
There's a couple things. One is that it'll kick out color bars and a couple different test patterns now. And then there's also on-screen displays for if you have a multi-viewer up or an image up, you can see VU meters now on the side. So that makes that thing worth more than, I think they're $300, $350. I can't remember, but you always need to have one. I can't believe that unlike the last couple productions I've been on, it was like, hey, you got an extra MDHX? And it was like, dang it. So you should always carry an extra one. I know Alex used to say that he'd have everybody carry one in their backpack. And man, I still can't believe that I didn't have one. So I had to pull this one that's actually running the show right now I had a church gig the other night, and I still wound up needing one more. And I was like, man, how does this keep happening? Just need one more MDHX. But I'm hesitant to update mine. I'm waiting for other people to do it. Let me get the stamp of approval, or I want to do one live in after hours. You know, that would be fun too. Oh, Peter Sargent's got one right there.
Idea. Oh,
Let's update his live on the air.
There you go. Let's brick it. Yeah.
You first.
Thank you.
Well, I always say that you need one more than you pack. You know, that's always the way. And the thing that I did sort of make sort of a test generator out of it in that you can change it to free run sync, and then set the no signal to a red or a green screen, and so that always worked great. So you could just plug it in, and immediately it would be putting out, you know, a red or green, you know, full frame signal, which is always really handy. And so I found that helpful. But I guess an actual test generator, which I think they had in the Cross, they used to have in the Cross version, so maybe they just moved it across. Mm-hmm. So there you go. All right, well, I'm up to date now. That's good. Very good. Courtney, what have we got? We've got a couple of questions there. And if you're playing along at home, it's a great panel. So you see what a challenging sort of discussion that we could get going here with your questions. But first of all, Courtney, what have we got there?
First one comes in from a QR code where you can, enter your questions by just pointing them at the QR code from Dan Lovallo, maybe, or Lovayo in Torrington, Connecticut. Says, I'm having problems sharing my computer screen from my Mac Mini M4 to the Rodecaster Video S. The cursor on my mouse is stuck on the monitor connected to my Mac Mini and will only move on the monitor connected to the Rode HDMI output. Help!
Anyone want to tackle this? Courtney, what do you think?
Well, I'm not that much of a Mac maven. But the question is, do you have the what? If it works like Windows, if you have it in duplicate screen, in other words, the same information on your Mac Mini's screen as on the screen that's feeding to the Rodecaster Video S, that may be a problem. If it's extended, make sure that the arrangement of the screens are such that you know which direction the extended screen is from your current computer screen. Because if you try and move the mouse the wrong direction, it'll just stop at the edge of the screen and not go onto the other screen, and will not move between the extended screen and the non-extended screen, the primary screen and the secondary screen. If you have duplicate screens, maybe Mickey can give you a better answer, because I'm not sure why the mouse wouldn't move unless you have some type of one of those applications that are designed to send the mouse to multiple different computers. Maybe that's what the problem is.
Mickey?
Yeah, that's actually what I was kind of thinking. Just in case there is another computer on the network, another Mac, the continuity feature in Mac OS would allow you to throw your cursor and your keyboard to another computer that's beside it. Of course, this would only make sense if that secondary machine is the one that's connected to the Rodecaster. But it's something to look at. This could also happen with third-party applications like Synergy.
Yeah, it's caught me out a couple of times. iPads, it works on iPads as well as other computers that can catch you. But you normally see a big bar that kind of goes down the side of the screen that kind of is a telltale that it's gone off to another computer. That could be something to do with it. Peter, any ideas?
So the other thing I can think of is if this Mac Mini is displaying to a regular screen over its own HDMI port, does the Rode S require DisplayPort by some odd chance? In other words, if it wants to connect the second screen, because there's only one HDMI out, right? So If it's USB to USB, does it think it's webcam? Does it think it's a... That's the question I would have. Besides all the other stuff you talked about, which is
Good one.
easily trapped, but you know,
Okay.
does it think it's a real device? Does it understand the device?
David?
Yeah. And the other thing I'd suggest is when you're in the display layout setting, you'll see a representation of the menu bar at the top of whichever display is the primary, and you want to drag that to the one that you want it to be on. I.e., if you're going out Thunderbolt to a display and you want that as your working primary display, drag that little tiny representation of the menu bar to that display and restart. The other thing, if you hit the Option key 5 times, it'll bring up, it'll enable mouse keys and turn your numeric keypad into, so you can go up, down, left, right, just by pressing the keyboard. So there's always that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good little tip. Good one. John, what do you think?
Well, I've done the keyboard trick that Dave talked about, and I always make my mouse big and green, and I shake it. But a friend of mine, I haven't used it, but a friend of mine had this issue, and there's an app called Catch Mouse Pro that lets you direct your mouse to your active screen. I might have to buy it just to play with it.
I have that here in New York, but it's Catch Rats, bro.
And Courtney?
Yeah, so you have to watch out for Catch Hantavirus Pro that's coming if you're catching that mouse. The other thing I was thinking is are you using the HDMI out from, like a Thunderbolt to or DisplayPort to HDMI converter coming out to get into the Rodecaster video, or are you using the USB-C input? USB-C out of the Mac Mini to the USB-C input on the Rodecaster, which it does have a USB-C input, but it's a very picky USB-C input, and it doesn't work with it doesn't work with Windows. It doesn't work with it does work with Windows, but it doesn't work with the ATEM Minis USB output, and it doesn't work with a lot of webcams. So if you're going in the USB input to the Rodecaster and then it's coming out the Rodecaster's HDMI out, but not moving on there, that might be a problem with the driver for the that's capturing, converting the USB-C input to HDMI or to video input on the Rodecaster. So you might check that as well.
Okay. Next question.
From James Watt in Ireland. He says, does the panel know of any laser pointer options that operate similar to the Logitech Spotlight, but more reliable? Presenters need to show it on LED screen and comfort monitor, downstream monitor, or downstage monitor.
Courtney, what do you think?
Well, the problem with a laser, using lasers on an LED screen is it ain't going to work because an LED screen is an emissive screen, which means that the light comes out of the LEDs on the screen, which means that laser light hitting the front of it will not reflect. So you can't usually even see a laser pointer when you point it at a LED screen. It just absorbs it. So you can't point at anything on the LED screen, and the reflection of the laser will never be brighter than the LEDs themselves on the LED screen. So if it's not a projection screen, then you're going to have to use something like the Air Mouse. This is a Logitech. They're kind of pricey. That uses gyros, inside the mouse. You hold this in your hand, and then it moves the mouse cursor on the screen. As you wave this, as you hold it in your hand and wave it around, it'll move the mouse cursor on the screen. So you can do that, and your presenter can stand out in front and not be near the computer and still move the mouse pointer on the screen to point at stuff, and also, send that same feed to the downstage monitor. So you should be able to see both that way. But that's the only way I know how to do it. And have a pointer to point stuff out, unless you have a separate tablet that has a telestrator or something on it where you can use a pin to point stuff out. But lasers aren't going to work with an LED screen.
Guy?
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you could pre-bake some of this stuff and then put the images into a PowerPoint beforehand, then in the bottom of PowerPoint, you do have this option right here that has the little laser pointer, and now you can highlight whatever it is that you want to highlight as if it were a laser pointer, but you're using the mouse, or you could use this in combination with something that does move the mouse around with a remote control. So then you can still fast forward, and there's other parts too where you can use a highlighter or a pen and things like that, so you could draw. So PowerPoint for the win.
Yeah. I'm interested, John, in your experience as well with lecturing and things, whether you were a laser pointer man or if you were using something fancier like you were playing around with before with doing things overlaying with your hands and things now. But were you laser pointer, or was it just chalk on the blackboard?
Oh, the dirt and the sand was the
right.
No, I was a big
On the
overhead
rocks.
guy, and if I jumped up, I'd show you my little hand that I would put on the overhead transparencies.
Nice.
But no,
Nice.
in my classes, I primarily would use a laser pointer, but we could do that on a television screen that we had there. I did use Mouse Pros for a while, which was a app that was on the Mac that would let you highlight a circle on it. But I tended to.
Yeah, that's right. And it could zoom in a little bit too, right? Like it would
zoom in, zoom out, and highlight the area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think James, I do quite a lot of medical in-person events, and what we're finding more and more now is in the newer events, in the newer venues, that they are putting in LED walls, which are great. They look really good. But yeah, the laser pointers won't work. And sometimes you also are doing dual projection or dual screen, and that also becomes a problem, right? You could have a laser pointer on one, but they can't be seen in the other. And then further for us, we're often recording them for on-demand viewing. And so we really want them to be able to be seen in the recording as well. And so we have found that a DSM is good, a downstage monitor is great. I don't find it particularly good for presenter view. I think often, even when they're 65-inch screens, they're too far away, and it's not a natural sort of intuitive sort of process to be standing so far away from a big screen and then trying to use a mouse. And so we have found having like a 24-inch monitor right there at the lectern with a mouse is the most natural way to do it. And we find that people, and we'll have a DSAN, like a perfect cue there as well. People are advancing the slides, and then they're grabbing on. And as Guy said, we hit Control L on a PC, and that will change it to laser pointer mode, and away it goes. Now, the only issue is that when it's in laser pointer mode, when you click, it doesn't do anything on the slide, right? And so some people can get confused by that. Excuse me. If you get into the flow of it, though, people will use the perfect cue to advance slides and the mouse to point. And actually, that's a really good combination and it works really well and looks great on a big LED screen. So I think those gyro sort of mouses and things, I think they just take too much practice. And generally, when you have people that have never used them before and they're coming up and swapping out presenters, it becomes an issue. You don't have to teach people how to use a mouse, and particularly when they're looking at a screen right in front of them. And so that's my preference. I only learned just recently that Minesweeper, the game Minesweeper, was specifically designed to teach people to use the right click. To know you use the right click button on the mouse. There you go. John, have you got show and tell now?
Well, I went back to the Wayback Box, and this is what I used.
Got your point.
But it worked very well.
Is it a telescoping stick
I
on
have
there?
one of those too. I'm sorry to say, but That's in
So
the
you-
upstairs office. And I usually
10
attach
foot
a fork
LED.
to it when I want to get dessert from somebody else's table.
Okay.
And
Courtney.
I just wanted to point out on reliability. I've had to do this for many years using remotes on set and on monitors to control a mouse with a wireless. And if I didn't have ProPresenter, which is the gold standard for wireless presentation control, if you have one of these cheesy Logitech ones, presentation controllers, these are all 2.4 gigahertz. And they compete with everybody else that's using 2.4 gigahertz on the stage. And so if you have anyone using like a Preston wireless focus control or anything, or everybody has a phone, like everybody does these days, your range for those 2.4, you plug the little 2.4 dongle into the USB port on your computer, and then you walk over to the middle of the stage, and reception just gets real dicey, and the mouse won't move because the signal to noise ratio is just too great in that 2.4 gigahertz radio range. So what a lot of times I would do is I would get me a 30-foot USB active extension that has a little inline amplifier in it. I'd plug that into the computer and then run the little dongle up so it's right at the base of the screen. So you're right in front of it. So you're always within about 3 or 4 feet of the screen. And that way you have a chance of it working much more reliably to use an air mouse or a presentation controller like a ProPresenter to make it to move the mouse on the screen or to advance the slides or do whatever you have to do to show that PowerPoint in time. So extend the receiver and put it close to the screen rather than hoping that it'll go to your computer that may be off stage or up in the projection booth or anywhere other than 3 feet away from you.
Yeah. And actually I've had great success with just little USB to Cat5 or RJ45. You can get them just passive versions that are like $10. And I use those, and I'll go 150 feet on a Cat5 cable, and it works great. And so we've got that we use that often to do exactly what you're saying, Courtney, either to have a wired mouse or to have a wireless mouse, but we have the receiver right there at the lectern to keep it really nice and close. And then we have just been we've got a couple of IP, so USB over IP boxes, which often are more like KVM sort of extenders, that type of thing, where and so it is IP, but you tend to not want to have anything else on that network and just have it point to point. That can work quite well for going more than 150 meters or going through existing infrastructure. That can work as well. All right, next question.
This one comes in from Washington, D.C. Brian Taylor says, can any of the streaming apps like OBS, Zoom, or Mimo Live read JSON or HTML5 video graphics files created with After Effects and the Bodymovin plugin, or is there something missing from this workflow?
It's a good question. I think that in general, the HTML5 can be brought into OBS and Mimo. You sort of overlaying essentially web graphics over the top, but the specifics of how that's created in After Effects, and I'm not familiar with the Bodymovin. Anyone else familiar with that? And I'm not sure how that's outputting, whether that sometimes those the browsers that are built into those are not kind of high end, they're kind of basic renderers of CSS and some basic JavaScript, but often not more demanding, or some of the more demanding types of content may not work very well with that. But yeah, if it's outputting essentially a web page and then you can view that web page in a browser, then I'd try it in a OBS browser. And if it has transparency, it should honor that in the OBS browser and sit across the top of whatever it is that you're doing, but not sure. John?
Well, I feel a little dangerous answering this because I'm not the Mimo Live expert, but we did do that at the NAB Creative Lab. And there's two ways of doing that in Mimo Live. One is there is a web browser source. So like you're just saying, if it's working in web browsers, but it will also fit in the animation layer. So there's an animation layer, which gives you a little more control.
Good one. Peter?
Well, I was just going to say, for clarity's sake, this is not what Zoom itself is for, because Zoom could do it, and Zoom doesn't do anything like this. And I don't think even with Zoom Graphics Toolkit, you would have to put something in between.
Yeah, it's not sort of a browser input. All right, next question.
Okay, next one comes in from Bo Cartle in Charleston, South Carolina. In addition to the Blackmagic Design version of 2110, I've been hearing a lot about MXL and IPMX. Anyone seeing these newer, more open formats in the wild yet?
Where's Carl when you need him?
So yeah, a lot of the there are multiple 2110 -22 encoders that also support IPMX because they're very, very similar. Off the top of my head, in terms of what I've actually used, a lot of the Nimbra boxes are able to handle IPMX along with 2110 transport, of course. But I know Matrox also has IPMX capable encoders. MXL I haven't seen so much yet compared to IPMX. So yeah, there's Nimbra, there's Matrox, and I think the Cobalt Digital as well has boxes, or they've released updates to their 2110 encoders that allow it to also do IPMX.
And did you have any general thoughts about 2110, Mickey? We've had some controversial opinions shared in Extra Hours of late about 2110. I'm not sure. There was a particular rant that Carl did a few weeks ago that has had some friendly opposition. Did you catch that, Mickey?
So yeah, with I think it's just a matter of costs coming down in terms of when 2110 will replace SDI. I think SDI will be around, especially at the edges, your cameras, and also the broadcast monitors that you use, multi-view monitors that your production looks at. Those will keep on staying in the SDI realm for a much longer time, SDI and or HDMI realm for a much longer time. But your core, the core of your infrastructure, of people's infrastructure, will slowly start moving to 2110 before the edges. It makes sense, I think, like at the moment, from what I see at least, if you're living in like if you have an SDI router that's 32 by 32, that's like the balance, the tipping point of where it makes sense to move over to 2110. If you have a 64 by 64 or larger router, SDI router, then that's like that's just obvious. Just go build a modern infrastructure. But the advantages are significant. It's just IP. If you're familiar with Dante, AV over IP, and even to an extent NDI, being able to essentially have a nearly unlimited DA just by adding more network switches, stacking switches, that's invaluable, especially in larger infrastructure where you have thousands or tens of thousands of endpoints. It just makes sense to go IP and with that. But I think if you're building an infrastructure now, and you have instead of buying an SDI router or multiple SDI routers, depending on how large your infrastructure is, especially like if you're working for a corporation with a campus with multiple buildings or even multiple campuses around the world, being able to orchestrate, say, okay, I'm, Fortune 50 company. I have campuses in multiple countries around the world. I'm building this all hands meeting that has multiple contribution from all around the world. You have your CFO in the UK, you have your CTO in some other country, and you need to orchestrate everything to just work for a single production. Instead of having to like think of it from one infrastructure to another, linking, just having a few links between different campuses. Just think of it as one whole cohesive system over IP. That just makes sense to me.
Yep, totally agree. Yeah, we, it's just at an event, a large event, and it was in a new facility, and they had QSys core systems everywhere, which are great when they work. David's nodding from possibly from the pain. And they are great from an AV integrator point of view, a boardroom setup, that type of thing. I'm sure that they work really well. In this sort of environment where we're trying to do event production, we had a bunch of sessions, and we had a particular session which was a movie premiere that was playing. And 10 minutes before, or 15 minutes before before the movie finished, video just cut out. We cut across to another input from somewhere else. Audio cut out, and it was just a bit of a disaster. And it's often the case when you're designing a system like that, you can totally understand in a multi-purpose space that they would say. Sometimes people come in and they say, we want to join these 3 rooms together. We want the same content on all of them. Or we want to pull in a feed from the other side of the building and put it in here. And so having sort of a, matrix system like that makes a lot of sense to be able to join all that. Sometimes, and at that point, I just wanted SDI and XLR. It was like I just want SDI to that projector, and which is what they ended up doing overnight. We had them put in a whole bunch of extra just standard infrastructure that we could just trust. And so I get it. I see both sides of it. In this instance, we didn't need to do anything else other than just have direct signal to that projector and the speakers that are in the room. And so if it wasn't, in the end, what was actually happening is I had a main and backup, and they were competing. One failed over to the backup, which is great, but then the main started sort of trying to take over again, and then they were both running, and so then there was confusion between it. And so the complexity of that system, I think, and it's often the case when we're designing whatever it is that we're doing, we can overcomplicate it, and sometimes we have to take and I'm guilty of this all the time, is overcomplicating things because we want to provide those extra features. But to take a step back and say, do you know what? We're going to not, it's like the Apple thing is as much about what they say no to. It's like all the features you say no to make it easier to use and to make it more reliable. So no, we're not going to be able to offer being able to send this to another room, but it is going to work in a rock solid way in this room. And so to the point about, again, 2110 makes a lot of sense when you need to do multi everything, multi endpoints, and sharing it all around and multicasting. I think it's incredible. I just guess there is times where SDI will be fine. And do you know what I think is that the SDI will become the VGA of the time, right? Because there are still times every now and again, particularly in an older building, where it's like, this thing's not working, this thing's not working. Hang on a second, is that a VGA port? It's like, I wonder if that'll still work. It's like, I've seen these little dongles, HDMI to VGA, and that has got me out of trouble. Where it's like the simplicity of this that just worked and got it going. There's something to be said about that. anyway, it's a fascinating discussion, and it's quite seasonal for me at the moment, as we had problems with a complex system. Guy, what do you think about this?
Well, as a former Blackmagic reseller, I used to be really in tune with all of this technology because I would buy the stuff and play with it because they would give us dealer demo discount pricing, so I could afford to buy them and train staff, have their people come in. And there's even an engineer right up here in Bellingham, which isn't that far away, who's on the Blackmagic forums, and it really is the propeller head. And when I heard some of the information that was discussed last week, I was kind of like, oh, is that accurate? Is that totally accurate? And then I saw in the chat there was some stuff going back and forth, and behind the scenes I heard a lot of different ways that we could bring on 2110 folks to have a 2110 show. So if you know 2110 and you would like to be involved, I know Mickey, Jonas, John Wallace, there's a few people in the community that are using 2110 and are active in it and know more and can share that knowledge here, so we don't spread misinformation. I think some of it came from this first device that came out, which was 2 years ago or so, where people got excited because they saw the back of this thing and they're like, oh, I could just do SDI in, and then I just plug that Ethernet cable in, and then I go point to point. So point to point, meaning two of these. So there was even a nice video where Jeff Keithley calls him backwards baseball cap guy, Brandon Peltz, live streaming mastery, put up a video that showed just that from the stage, ran it back, and it's simple. You get it, and that's the first taste. So some people understand unicast, but they don't understand multicast, and that's where you start to get into how do you duplicate these, and that's the joy of this. When I first started using NDI, and I was like, wait, I don't have to run another cable. I just say, I want more video monitor over here, studio monitor over here, another converter over there. So there's a lot of joy there. In regards to Bo's question, when you're talking 2110, we're seeing that for uncompressed, like in these $1 million trucks. But the IPMX world is more about the corporate AV install and playing nicely with more compressed formats. And so I think we will see more of that. Matrox is really spearheading. I put a link in the chat to some of the Videon encoders, or not Videon, but there's a couple encoders that they showed at their booth. It starts with a Vera. It's the Vera converters that'll do cross conversion of SDI to 2110 or IPMX. And so I think we're going to see more of these come out into the market and get cheaper over time, because one of the big things is cabling. Like you look at Blackmagic's rack now with their 2110, it's just like, hey, it's just this cable. And it's like, wow, I'm so used to like spaghetti, it's just like having to custom run all these cables. And then as far as MXL, last IBC, there was a lot of hubbub about the people of the world gathering together, all the broadcasters, because it's really an EBU spearheading effort here. And I know that Andy Carluccio got into it with ZoomISO Cloud being MXL aware, and it is now containerized in Linux. And so it's about being able to get video from a place to a place, either locally or in the cloud, to where you're not having to go transport the typical NDI way where you're compressing something, decompressing it. You skip that whole cycle. So things can happen very, very quickly with this new format. So I'm excited to see what that means and how Grass Valley and some of the other early adopters showcase it to folks like us that go, oh, ZoomISO Cloud now with this new switcher that hopefully is not $100,000, can just switch, faster than a vMix in the cloud could with ZoomISO, or some other mechanism to get that video across without that stage, because it just means faster latency and less processing, because you're skipping a step.
Very good. David?
Yeah, the expression we used to use at work was belt and suspenders. So belt and suspenders for that backup route. And reading this question with IPMX gave me a flashback to IPX days with Novell Netwear. And then that made me think of all of the layers of cabling that we have at our broadcast center that probably goes back to the dawn of television. And they just keep adding to it. So those ceiling trays are dense. But yeah. And the IPX thing will go back to my my media recommendation for tonight. So yeah.
Oh, look at that little tease. Mickey, jump back in.
Yeah, touching on something you mentioned earlier, Grant. I think the big question for me is if if a 2110 would penetrate into the, your prosumer market, your hobbyists, your streamers, the folks that use ATEM minis, ATEM mini pros, ATEM mini extreme, so once that just rely on HDMI. I think that's a question for me, because at the moment I don't know if I see an advantage going IP there, but with a, a typical broadcast infrastructure, even a smaller one, as long as they're using SDI, it it just makes sense. Like, why buy a DA when you can just plug into another port into your network switch? You don't you don't need that. And along the same lines, just so that folks are aware, I think there might be some confusion. 2110 is meant to be multicast, especially like in a standard environment. You're not doing unicast. The only time you're doing unicast in a 2110 environment is typically when you're doing um, like simply 2110-22, which is compressed. And you typically do that when you're transporting to, say, if you're having to use managed networks or even the public internet to go out to, say, a different site, a different location, or even up to the cloud to AWS Media Connect, you're doing simply 2110-22. You're doing compressed to 2110. If you are going through that, since in most situations you don't have unlimited bandwidth, especially going through the public internet. That's a time when you would do unicast, but within a single production environment, it's multicast all the way. And then that's and along the same lines of 2110-22. I think IPMX and MXL also makes sense with that when you're transporting offsite in a situation where you have limited bandwidth, or say you're leasing doing a leased line with dark fiber from a telco, and you only have a couple strands available to you, then you may want to conserve bandwidth. That's when you would go to a more compressed what do you call this protocol.
All right, we're going to move on. Courtney, what's the next question?
All right, the next one comes in from Rafat Al-Sayed in Toronto, Canada. And Rafat asks, can ZoomISO output multiple parallel Zoom sessions as isolated streams to different destinations while also providing multi-view monitoring? And what platform do you recommend for viewers to buy a ticket to watch each stream separately? That's a tall order. Thanks.
Mickey?
So a single instance of ZoomISO can only be in a single meeting at any point in time. You can of course have multiple ZoomISOs to pull from multiple meetings or even webinars, but one client, one Zoom event at a single point in time. In terms of creating multi-views, if you consider a gallery view output as a multi-view, you can do that, I guess. But that's not what one would traditionally call a multi-view output. In terms of allowing for ticketing for through multiple platforms, I think I would throw to Grant for that, because he has something. He has a service that really works well for that sort of requirement.
Fair enough. Guy?
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do when you say isolated streams to different destinations, because if you look at ZoomISO version 3, you do have, and 2 actually, you have the ability to go out NDI and SRT. So if you want to beam that over to somewhere like a vMix station in the cloud, you could grab each feed and say, go to this address at this port and send it on over. The other way that we do it, so this machine is the actual notorious machine that runs the Zoom bots in the cloud. Now, what you'll notice down here in the bottom is 8 copies of Mimo Live. So this is one meeting, but each one of these people is a version of Mimo Live. So this is a way of pushing these talking heads into a meeting by running 8 copies of the same app. So depending on what you're trying to do, you could use OBS on multiple computers, but there's a couple different ways. And as far as being able to recommend something for viewers to buy a ticket, there's Vimeo, there's Zoom Events, and there's Avio. So a couple different ways to fly on that one.
Peter?
Well, I was going to say, you can always, and I have run multiple copies of ZoomISO on the same machine. As long as they're named differently, they run along just fine. They provide their gallery view, their own gallery, not gallery view, I should say, their view, version 3 actually gives you a multi-view of each of the speakers in it. By the way, Guy, I noticed on that Jamal is on vacation again today.
That guy, I don't know why.
But I do that a lot for testing out some of my stuff I do with the Scouts, and then I use a very different system for going to events, which is unique to Scouting. So I'm not going to go into it too deep, but it's one that is offered to the Boy Scouts and does a bunch of other stuff that has to do with youth protection and so forth, which is not something that, Grant, I think you probably ever think about. Well, I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just something, if you're assuming either everyone's over 18 or they're under 18, right? I have to assume everyone is under 18.
Sure. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, we don't have a lot of people using the platform for that. Although we have some schools that have to consider that. Yeah. So whenever I'm thinking about this sort of stuff, I think it's important to break down acquisition or acquiring content, producing it, and then distributing it. And so because it is 3 different things, and the problem is that sometimes we're like in Zoom, it's all 3 at once. And so if I'm spotlighting or I'm doing this, I'm sort of producing the show within Zoom, or of course there's Zoom Production Studio with Zoom Events and things like that, right? Which conflates the 3 things. That there's always acquiring the content, producing it, and then distributing it. And so when we think about what ZoomISO is doing, is it's helping us to acquire the content. It's then going somewhere where we need to produce it. We're switching it. And then the third step is thinking about how we distribute it. And so with when you're asking about how would people watch that, sometimes when in the producing segment of that, we are multi-views and things are part of the process for people to see the production or see the process of production happening. And so often with an event like this, we would have a green room as an example where team members are able to see what's going on. They can see the show. They can also see a multi-view of what's so they can see the content as it's coming in as well. And so it's about making a multi-view. And then the final destination is where all the attendees are. And the decision needs to be what sort of experience do you want people to have? And so a live stream may be all it needs to be. And at this point, it's kind of just like a TV broadcast. And so now when we're able to separate those 3 things, now it's just a 16:9 output and away it goes. And so now they can watch that, as Guy said, Vimeo, YouTube, whatever. There's a whole bunch of platforms for doing a live stream. And Wowzer, I use Wowzer Cloud quite a lot as well, which is awesome for live streaming. That's another good one. If you thought that actually for the attendees, we'd love them to be able to see each other, we'd like to be able to see the attendees, then that would be using Zoom as a distribution, having broadcasting into Zoom, and then having all the attendees being able to see that. And so if that was where you were going down the line, then Obvio is a platform that Blue and I built 6 years ago, and still using today. And that's just a way of really getting attendees into Zoom, particularly en masse. And so if we have a large number of people, we can spin up a whole bunch of different Zoom meetings and then automatically load balance between them all. So you may find that helpful. Guy?
Sorry,
Guy?
my little mute was down in the corner. One more thing, Zoom Tiles is a nice way to build out some of those multi-views, because you can just natively join a Zoom meeting and then you can put whatever you want inside of these and however many you want. You could even do some cool things with punch out, so you could have something in the center if you're downstream putting like a logo or something like that. And there's all kinds of interesting things you can do with this. And with that Zoom enhanced media add-on now for $25 a month, Tiles and ISO are included. So you got both those to play with, or you could bring stuff in. No, I guess you couldn't bring it in through SD. Yeah, you'd still be hole punching to get another person locally. And I would suggest playing with that, because there's a way that moves all the other tiles around when you do your hole punch. So you can have somebody in the center or right or left, that's the host, and then make everybody else around them, or that's your program in the middle, and then you want all the other cameras surrounding it, or customized look.
Yeah, it's very cool. Blue, I'm not sure if I've spoken about it, but Blue has been building a vibe coding, but exceptionally well, an Obvio version of the Zoom SDK, and so kind of our own version of the Zoom client. And one of the cool features that we got in there was detecting if someone is in the frame of their video and turning them off if they're not. And so it's working really nicely. And so we send them a little message that says, "Hey, we noticed that you were that you've stepped away. When you come back, just DM and say I'm back, and it'll auto trigger a request to turn their video back on." And so all of that's working really nicely. So now our gallery views are full of people instead of sometimes ceiling fans and black frames and things like that can often be the case. So that together with tiles, which tiles, Zoom Tiles is great for being able to just turn someone off. You can just kind of put them in a list that just removes them, which is really cool. But this is kind of automating that in a sense. So it's kind of cool. All right, next question.
Next one comes in from Berlin, Germany. Andre Delay says, I just discovered why my screen share connection to my Mac Mini AI server got so slow. Turns out I had retina resolution enabled unintentionally, which let the display appear as 5K for VNC. Thoughts?
Huh. Courtney?
Yeah, my thought is you should never do that for an AI server, because most AI servers aren't serving up high resolution anyway. So I think they make these dummy plugs, and they make them 4K, but I think you can set them to 1080p. So if you're going to run it headless as an AI server, you probably want to plug an HDMI or USB-C or DisplayPort to a dummy plug in there, and you can find them, a lot of them on Amazon. So that, and then set your resolution to something like 1080p 60, because if you're going to connect to it over VNC to control it separately and you're going to be using it to generate images, let's say, or using it as an AI server, you don't need 5K resolution to do that. And most of the generators, even Midjourney, 4K is pushing it, and you probably only want to stay at 1080p. So there's a suggestion. That's my thought, but I don't have many AI servers, so I don't know for actual. Just guessing.
Yeah. Mickey?
And if you're using the VNC screen sharing that's built in by default into Mac OS, assuming you are just simply checking on your server to do AI, prompting or whatever, there's no reason to use high performance mode. Just stick to the standard mode so that you're not pulling down higher bitrate that then you have to. You're not having the server, the AI server, render as high quality an image as possible just for your command prompts. You don't need that high quality rendering for that.
Yeah. Peter.
Well, I would, besides doing what Courtney suggested, because I do that on all my Mac Mini utility servers, not necessarily doing AI, but doing utility functions. But I don't understand why he hasn't set the default resolution for his displays to 1080p. Because once you do that in Mac OS, that's what it's going to send.
Yeah, maybe. It depends if there's an actual screen.
dummy plug to tell it that there's a monitor connected.
Well, you have to do both. You have to
turn on the video in the first place. Yeah,
you have to do both, Courtney, right? And once you do that, you'll never get caught, because I did get caught out by that. And yes, Mickey, I never use high performance mode unless I absolutely have to.
It's really cool when you want to use it. It's great.
Yeah.
I use it to edit Final Cut, off of a laptop. It works great for that. All right, last question, Courtney.
Coming in from Tokyo, Japan, Scott Hancock says, in order to mount a somewhat larger PTZ camera on a light stand rather than on a tripod to get the height, I'm looking for a plate with a baby pin or a wider adapter from 1/4 to the camera to a baby pin of the light stand.
Mm-hmm. John, did you make sense of that?
Make my sample here.
Oh.
So what it looks like. The only challenge, this is a 3/8 at the end, so I need to put a little adapter if it's a 1/4. So that's not as much of a base, but I used this on some light spans when we were doing the NAB Creator Lab, and it worked very well.
Yeah, okay. Mickey?
I'm not sure if the stand actually has the baby pin on it or if it's a female baby pin receiver. If it actually has the pin on it, then I'd look at a company like Matthews. They have baby pin to 1/4 adapters. But if the stand does have a baby pin receiver on it, then you can get this little what do you call it, this spigot that has that you can put into a baby pin receiver, has a 1/4 on the other side. If the stand has a junior pin, I'd recommend going that route because that's certainly a more robust connection compared to baby pin. And aside from Matthews, another brand I trust for this would be Avenger. Avenger is now owned by Manfrotto. That's another brand I trust. Don't go with like rando brand from Amazon or like B&H Kupo garbage products. Go with the trusted brands if you're staking the life of your cameras on it. Like go with something that you can trust.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I have used some speaker stands for this idea as well, and so sometimes they're just a little bit thicker, but you can run into, I have got some light stands, and you can run into wobble on them just because they're not quite as stable. And but even then, so sometimes it depends on the use of for the camera, and I would find that if I'm using presets and the movement is mostly when the PTZ is moving and then it settles, and it's no problems, I'm fine with that. And I got the height, and I didn't have big legs is part of it as well. There's a company we use for nice big solid stands called Gravity stands, and they are really nice and thick, and they're sort of like a speaker stand, and they've got a nice round base plate on them. They're really good. We use those for PTZs that is rock solid, nice and tall, and no legs that people can trip over. Guy?
Yeah, I was going to say exactly what you just said. As somebody who does this all the time, we have to use speaker stands that are a little bit more heavy duty, and then even then put additional weight on them. So this little $29 speaker stand to quarter 20 adapter is what we wind up using. The other thing is to use truss if you can. I mean, go up with truss because it's just rock solid, and invert it, mount it upside down. But yeah, I've noticed a lot of wobble, especially like you were saying with those presets. If you whip too fast, it's just going to sit there and take a little bit to settle back down because of the single pull position. So if you can get multiple, two across, and get a crossbar, that way you're way more steady.
Yeah, we've used they call it a dual hat or something as well. We've sort of jerry rigged up so we could put two PTZs on one stand, and that actually has worked really well. You can have sort of a mid shot and a tight shot, all on one stand. It's really nice to do it that way. Courtney, last
Well,
comment.
shameless self-plug. You could get the Good Sound patented 5/8 C-stand adapter for microphones, 3/8 inch coarse thread on the top. These are made out of 7075 aluminum. They're very thick. I've actually put 35 millimeter cameras mounted on that 3/8 inch post right there. Available now from True Audio for only $19.99. I've been manufacturing these. I came up with these, invented them 30 years ago because I couldn't find anything to mount a microphone on top of the end. It also fits. It's a 5/8 inch hole here. It makes a satisfying sound. Is that I was looking for something to mount on the back end of a 5/8 inch C stand, so you can use it as a boom arm on a C stand. So it works also for that, for mounting, the 3/8 inch coarse 16 threads. There fit almost all microphone, shock mounts. So it's used for that. But you might need, if you need a 1/4 inch, you can get a 3/8 inch to 1/4 inch adapter to put on the end of it. And I designed these and I'm building them and been providing them for the past 30 years, but I just stopped manufacturing them. So you're on your own, only left to the ones in stock.
Wow. What other products did you have? Did you have any other products?
I was going to say the same
right?
thing.
I had lots of products.
Yeah.
I'm not going to push them here, but yeah. Yeah. I invented a lot of stuff over the years.
That you're still selling.
Not really. Like I said, discontinued, and I've informed True Audio, who's been selling them, and before that, Location Sound Corp was selling them for the last 30 years. That they will no longer. When my current stock is gone, I'm not going to manufacture them anymore. Been doing it for 30 years.
You never cease to amaze me, Courtney. Something comes out every week. It's something that surprises me. I'm not sure how I didn't know that. Over the years that you had your own little thing, and it's patented. So the patent will run out as well, though, right? Is that part of it?
There is no patent. It would have run out, the patent's only good for 17 or 20 years, depending upon when you did it. So it would have run out, 10 years ago. So, but nobody else is making them. I don't know why, then they're not that compact or that strong.
Amazing. All right. We've come to the end of the questions. Oh, Mickey, did you want to find a little comment there?
Oh yeah, just wanted to add whichever stand you go with, throw counterweight on there. Not only for, of course, safety, so in case someone bumps into it, but also for stability. Having a nice base that is solid means there's less vibration from the ground that could travel up and give you some vibrations on the right at the optics. So counterweight, throw some sand on there, stabilize your stand.
Good one. All right. We'll move on to our content recommendations. We've got a good panel. This will be interesting. Get your YouTube watch list ready, because often there'll be something there about a YouTube channel or video, and this is generally some sort of content. I normally pick on Guy because he tries to get software in there. I say that's not really content, and then he'll find a video about the software and then says that that's content pick. This is an opportunity to recommend sort of a TV show, a movie or something as well, or YouTube. So we'll see what we come up with. Courtney, what have you got first?
Well, I don't know if you're like me, but in my YouTube feed, I'm constantly plagued by these things, this AI slop that's been turning up, and it's always like 30 minutes long, and it always has some sensationalistic thumbnail and a like, you won't believe why, Ethel left I Love Lucy, and the true story behind that. And so you go in and you look at it. You get to the end of the 30 minutes and they don't even answer the question that's promoted in the thumbnail. So one came across my my YouTube feed a few days ago, and it sounded like AI slop, and it was behind the scenes, the party, Blake Edwards, and it was like 29 minutes long or 30 minutes long. I don't know. Great, more AI slop. So I went to look at it. And it's from a channel called Serious Feather. And I went, yeah, Serious Feather. Okay. This came out of some Russian troll farm somewhere that's trying to do, just harvest the clicks. And, but Serious Feather, I went to the site. Eventually, I watched the one on behind the scenes, the party. And I watched that, and it's 32 minutes long. Peter Sellers movie, directed by Blake Edwards. Very interesting. This is actually a high-quality documentary. There is no AI. It's 100% AI free. And it starts out, and it's all done with this guy who looks like a homeless guy who is a flasher in Piccadilly Circus. But he's in Manchester, England. And he's a film historian, and he teaches film. And an editor, and some of the most skillful editing. So what he's done is, and all of this channel is new. I mean, the oldest stuff on there is about 5 months old. And they're dumping stuff, this one was 3 days ago. This one was 4 days ago. And there are, I don't know, I haven't gotten to the end of the list, but a lot of great movies. He's taken all the behind-the-scenes extras and things that you find on DVDs from the 80s and 90s. He's loaded them in and edited them all together to tell a story, the equivalent of Ken Burns kind of documentaries. He's intercutting interviews with the directors, the art directors, the cinematographers, the actors, the writers, the directors, about, the start of each. To Kill a Mockingbird, this is a great one too. And has interviews with starting with Horton Foote and the screenwriters and how they changed directors. And it's just amazing storytelling. He's re-edited all this stuff together. There are no credits or anything at the beginning or the end. And there are, I don't know, there's The Godfather, Dog Day Afternoon, Goodfellas,
Blues Brothers.
War Games. The Blues Brothers is a really funny one too. There's a lot of John Landis interviews, and there's no fake voiceover. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. How they got that made. Michael Douglas. Incredibly interesting stories on all these films. And if you're as much a film buff as I am, having lived and worked in Hollywood for over 50 years, this stuff is just invaluable. And I swear I haven't hit one that I've seen before. So he's found all this footage and interviews, and he interleaves the interviews together so that they tell the same story from the director's point of view, the producer's point of view, the actor's point of view, and so on. And it weaves it together into a really coherent story. And so they're all incredibly interesting. I was just watching the Lawrence of Arabia one before we came on here. Just incredibly interesting. It's called Serious Feather. So look for it from a guy named Brett Gregory in Manchester, England.
A homeless guy, Brett, is apparently very good. All right, Guy.
He should pick a better image for his
image,
website, though. Yeah.
Nice. Mine's going to be the Lex Friedman podcast. He had the guys who made FFmpeg and VLC on. 4-hour episode. It's bananas. But one of the things that stood out is AV1. They talk about AV1 and they talk about AV2 that's coming out. But it's interesting, a few little notes like this, like AV1's 30 to 50% better compression than H.264, the same visual quality. And then it was invented because of the escalating patent costs of HEVC. So it's interesting to learn some of these behind the scenes things and where the future is of these. And it's wild that even like these big corporations here, I was getting an SRT, very high quality SRT feed from one of the Fortune 100 companies. And they're like, yeah, just pop it open in VLC. Here's a stream ID. And I was like, I've never thought about just using VLC to open up an SRT feed. I was like, going to vMix and, getting everything all set up. And it was just like, just open it up with VLC. Here's the URL. I was like, so little things like that you kind of forget. And so, or you didn't know. So, hey, that's one of the benefits of watching this show.
Good one. What did you do during the 4 hours? Did you do that in segments?
I haven't watched the whole thing. I listened to some of it in the car. I listened to some of it on the elliptical, and it's still powering through it. I might have to listen to something to put me to sleep, too, because it's a long one.
It's a good one. Very good. All right. John, what have you got?
This is sort of a strange content recommendation. Periscope Films, Courtney, you may know of them. And they bring back old films. I had to, I didn't have to, but I was trying to find an old Navy training film back from the 70s. And I actually found it there. And then I found so many old things on it that it's like a walk through memory lane. So I recommend going to Periscope Films to see if one of your favorites from your youth may still be there.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think you can license Periscope films and it won't have the time code on them.
Yeah, I think that's
the
goal. They have the time code written into it, but I was surprised how many things were there, and that I was able to find that one old Navy training film.
You said from your youth. Now, your youth and my youth are very different time.
You really know how
moments in time. Like, I look at all their films. I didn't see any in color, as an example, which would be my youth.
One of the challenges I had, there's another recommendation, a film called Television Land, and it's a history of broadcasting from Red Skelton till the 60s. And it has the footage of the Ruby being shot. It was a live televised shooting. And I would use this film to talk about the history of television. And in one of my large lecture classes, I did the old, and where were you when John Kennedy was assassinated? Were you watching the television 3 days later? And the students looked blank, and I finally said, well, where were you? And they said, well, I think my mom may have been alive, but I wasn't. I knew the date had expired on that for use in my classes.
Very good. I just see one. I was just looking at which one was this? Oh, the Babe Ruth at Yankee Stadium. It's pretty cool. All right, Peter Sargent.
Well, kind of along the same lines. I happened to watch an old movie, circa 1980 something, The Last Starfighter, with my grandson, who is, by the way, 19. So let's back to John, what you were just talking about. Time frame. I mean, I saw it first run in the movie theater. Now it was this late night on Netflix. But it got me thinking about, because there's a funny credit at the end that says CGI was done on a Cray XMP processor to generate the graphics. So I went and looked on YouTube, and there's a whole list, and I, unfortunately, since I'm running a hotel, I can't switch it in, but there's a chronological playlist of CGI history videos that go from the 1950s to the 2020s, sitting out on YouTube, where you could see they go through reference movies and say, here's how CGI advanced at each one of these points. And yes, eventually Industrial Light and Magic shows up, but it was interesting to see the things that happened before ILM.
Yeah, very good. Sounds good. Mickey.
Yeah, I'd like to recommend if you're dabbling in 20 ST2110, but really any AV over IP protocol, I'd recommend taking a look at the YouTube channel of VSF, the Video Services Forum. These are the guys that created the initial recommendations that SMPTE based the ST2110 standards on. So they have a lot of very informative videos here. They recently a month ago posted the every year they have a conference called VidTrans, and they recently posted a bunch of recordings from the sessions from VidTrans 2026, which was last Feb, if I recall correctly. And yeah, a ton of information here. Bo had a question about IPMX. They have a session IPMX here, what they discovered in their own exploration of IPMX. There's so ton of info. They have a playlist that's called IP Showcase IBC 2019. So much information there, hours and hours of content. Gather your family on the weekend, sit your kids down and have them watch a couple of hours of 2110 information there. And yeah, it's a nice family watching experience. You can binge watch it. If you're wondering what to have for dinner after your binge watching session with your family, check out Steve 1989. He goes and reviews a bunch of MREs. MRE stands for meal ready to
Meals
eat.
ready to eat.
That's what that's the rations that they give out to soldiers and people in disaster areas. If you're looking for someone
bad crafty.
If you're looking for someone with so much positivity that he describes like powdered chocolate drink mixed with instant coffee as something decadent, and a main from a retort pouch placed on some vegetable crackers as something truly gourmet. If you want that positivity in your life, check out Steve 1989.
Nice one. Oh, two good ones. So this is the thing. Often is some YouTube channels, and sometimes it's millions and millions of views, and you still haven't heard about it. And then this one, the VSF Mickey, it's got like 32 views on 50 views, 22 views on some of those videos from a month ago, and so it's really obscure. And probably really great content that just not many people. It's a very niche topic. Which is cool. And that's why you've come here. You get that great content recommendations.
You want mine?
David, did we do David?
No.
Yeah, sorry.
I thought. No, I teased it earlier.
Oh,
But,
that's right.
Yeah.
You did. You did.
So
that's right. You didn't raise the hand. That's what threw me.
The backstory, a couple weeks back in my neighborhood, they had a spring cleaning event where you could bring electronics, etc. I got rid of a bunch of old MIDI controllers, a stack of old iPads, bunch of laptops and other stuff. And that got me going down memory lane, and it brought me to the Computer History Archives Project, otherwise known as CHAP. And there's hundreds of movies of different instructional ones. There's even one for Courtney, this first one here, me, own a Macintosh, Apple Computer, 1987.
Wow.
Lots of good stuff there. A pure cure for insomnia. So if you're having a hard time snoozing, just put on one of their playlists and just scroll down memory lane. It's pretty good stuff.
Thank you, David. Once I go through all the,
Go through all the Periscope and all the behind the scenes from the Serious Feather.
The Serious Feather looks good.
It's amazing. I haven't been disappointed by a single one, and there's more than 100 of them on there.
Cool.
Every famous
good ones. Oh man, the Commodore and the Amiga.
Oh yeah,
so good.
Commodore Wars.
Yeah.
Yes.
there is something that was like I used to get the computer magazines, and I don't have that same experience now. There's kind of that it was like sort of pre-internet in a way, or accessing internet for these sorts of things. And so getting a computer magazine and reading all these articles and looking at all this stuff and getting a CD-ROM or, on the front of it with a bunch of freeware on it and things like that was just that was my childhood of playing around with computers, and it was just an exciting time. The immediacy now of the internet and the speed of it all and everything just hasn't got that same
kids don't know how hard it was.
Well, it was fun though, right? Like, it was exciting.
As I tell people, my introduction to computers were measured in tons.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice. There was that. I think screen time wasn't really a term that was considered then, but screen time for me, I think about it, was just so different. I'm looking at a DOS prompt, and trying to work out what I could do is very different to what it is today.
We're waiting for AOL to load at 9600 baud.
Oh. How many of us remember our CompuServe ID?
Anyway, thank you very much. Another awesome panel. It was good to have you all here, spread around the world as we are, and some great questions and some good commentary in the chat there as well. If you are watching live, then jump into After Hours now to continue the conversation. Some of us will be able to jump in there, and you can catch us again next week. The Tlaloc traversal was 20,000 miles. So that doesn't sound very much. 32,000 kilometers, 157 million bananas for scale. A big thank you to Taylor and Robert and Alan and Peter that are working diligently in the background, making it all work. Really appreciate you playing around. I think there was some Mimo Live, and there's some vMix going on as well to play around, and there's a bit of testing going on, which is part of what the show is about as well, right? Is that we're able to play around with these things every week and test some different things. So that's happening too. If you would like to get involved in that, you can contact Taylor, and he can get you connected. Volunteer. I think you could go to officehours.global/volunteer, and that would get you connected too. So, all right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, panel. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Bye-bye.